Gracious Heavenly Father, as we close out our time on this particular subject, on Christian ethics and matters related to it, and as we discuss especially artificial intelligence and especially being online, God, we pray that you would help us to understand a little bit better about how it is we are to navigate the world in which we live. And as you help us in that, we do pray, dear God, that you would give us ears to hear, and eyes to see in regards to how to behave ourselves. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now, to start us out tonight, what we're going to do is we are going to go to a passage in the book of Ephesians to start us out. Because one of the things about being online or acting online that is a problem nowadays is that people forget that other people can see what you post online. That is a problem that we run into all the time in regards to young men going into the ministry. We often have to ask them to clean up their Facebook page or Twitter page or Instagram or whatever. Not because necessarily what they posted online is sinful, but what they posted online is unwise, especially for somebody seeking a position that has with it a number of outward-facing activities that require you to have a good face. And of course, being online nowadays is really where the front porch is, so to speak. So I'm going to begin tonight by reading from chapter 4 of the book of Ephesians in verse 25. Wherefore, putting away lying, speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Be you angry and sin not, let not the sun go down upon your wrath, neither give place to the devil. Let him that stole steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may have to give to him that needs. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of God, whereby you are sealed unto the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice, and be yet kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. Amen. So, as we start to think about how we act and think and talk online, it's worth asking the question, when did you first start, quote unquote, getting online? That's right, after Al Gore invented it. After Al Gore invented it.
I guess I've been about
1998.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't even know how to text.
98. Yeah. I was a little bit different. I've talked before about the fact that my dad was always heavily involved technology-wise. In 1987, my dad tapped into at the time what you would have called a bulletin board, but was like an intranet that ran through Kodak's phone lines all throughout their entire system, all throughout the entire corporate system. And they had these little, again, bulletin board things on the intranet where you could have conversations with people. They had different sections that you could do stuff. Like one of the things my dad was involved in was computer games. And of course, back in the mid '80s, computer games were mostly text based. They really had. They had some, quote unquote, video games, but on computers at least, they were still pretty much text based. And so they had these little rooms where they would play games and stuff. And that was my first interaction with what today we would call the internet. Now, because of the nature of my dad's work, when he worked with Consolidated Natural Gas, they had an internet in about 1993 was the first time we ever had internet in the house. Now, the internet that we had was still tied through a corporate structure. And we had this little, it looked like a little clock, but it had numbers on it, and it reset every day. And that was the password to get on Consolidated Natural Gas's internet. And that was where it first started having things like Prodigy. Yeah, y'all remember Prodigy? Remember who was the first big booster of Prodigy? Rush Limbaugh. They were a big sponsor of Rush Limbaugh back in the late 80s, early 90s. And anybody remember the other big one that Rush pushed all the time? CompuServe. Y'all remember that? So those were like the very, very early, and one of the big things about Prodigy that was unique, it was one of the first ones to have email, where you could actually like send messages across the internet. Now you had the person on the other end had to have Prodigy, had to have the same program as you, but they also, of course, had to have internet themselves. Now, at that time, where did the internet come from? From a telephone line, right? And what would happen if somebody at your house was on the internet and you picked up the phone? You could hear it, right? And also it would break the connection, and somebody would yell at me.
Took me 20 minutes to get on here.
That's right. And you think about that right now. So 1993 was the first time we had internet in my house. And I can remember the first search engines in about 94, 95, going into 96. Lycos, Ask Jeeves. Yahoo was pretty early. I to this day still have a yahoo.com email address because my dad set it up for me. It's the same email I've had that second in Helvetic.
It doesn't run out of space like they do nowadays.
No.
The new ones
Yeah.
run out of space like crazy.
Yeah. And so, but one of the things I remember about the first search engines is that it was the Wild West. I mean, you could search anything on them things. And, that was when... that was when I remember the first time we ever had an assembly at high school about the internet was about 94, 95, somewhere around in there. And it was all about things that kids were searching at school on the internet about. And you think about that kind of time period, so let's say 94, 95, let's kind of give that thing, right? Has that gotten better or worse?
I'd say worse.
It's gotten a lot worse, right? Because back in 1995, if you wanted to find something that you shouldn't on the internet, what did you have to have, and how did you have to gain access to it? Your parents have had to have purchased a $1,500 piece of equipment, adjusted for inflation. About $1,500 is what a PC cost in today's money back in 1995. What else did you have to have? You had to live in a town that had access to the internet, right? Did they have internet out at Kings Creek in 1995? Yeah, we didn't have internet on Manor Grayson until about 2022. But so you had to have access to the internet. You had to have a computer, and what else did you probably need to have? Somebody in the house who knew how to operate it, right? Because it wasn't as simple as just turning the thing on, right? How many of y'all had AOL? Right? You remember logging into AOL? Like it was a whole process, right? And how long did it take? Several minutes, right?
You did it, and then you go like wash the dishes, and then you come back and do it again.
Right. Because again, so I mean, this is a much involved process. Nowadays, if you want to find something you shouldn't on the internet, how long does it take?
Half a second.
Yeah. You almost don't even have to type anymore. One of the things that Google is developing is it's not an implant, but it's basically, it works similar to like the ear implants, the cochlear implants, where you can like stick it on the side of your head, just like a cochlear implant, and it like reads your brain waves. Now, does that sound crazy?
Yeah.
Does that sound...
Stupid.
Now, does that really even seem that far-fetched?
No,
No, because you think about where we've gone from 1995 to 2026, right? In 31 years, all right, and that always breaks my brain to think that 1995 was 30 years ago. 31 years ago. But you think about how far we've come. But think about how far we've come in like 15 years. All right, when did y'all get your first smartphone?
It's been a long time.
That's when we moved here.
Probably
Before 2010.
Yeah, probably 15 years ago, right? The iPhone came out in 2007. Was when the first iPhone came out.
I remember
2018.
texting coming out, and I thought it was the dumbest thing ever.
Well, I remember the biggest thing that changed with me, technology-wise, was when I went from a phone that you had to text, you had to use the keypad and like get the 3 letters, to getting a phone that had a slide-out keyboard on it.
I missed
That changed everything. Because I mean, then you could text at almost normal speed, and texting has become my favorite form of communication. But you.
I still can't text it almost. Still like it.
That's right. Do you have like a rotary thing on your phone?
Well, she still has the original iPhone. So
Okay.
Mom still has a rotary.
Yeah. So again, you think about how much things have changed, right? It really hasn't been that long since we've had these in our pockets. But think about how much these things have advanced in 15 years. Yeah, and what you're able to do with this. Yeah. And just think about.
You're supposed to be.
Wow. Yes. Yeah, that's right. And think about where things are going to be in 15 years. I mean, it's hard to even comprehend where things might be. But, is all of us becoming Amish, a live option? I wish it was. It should be. But, it's impossible to travel internationally now without a phone. If you try to get a printed ticket in Europe, they do not have printers at the airport. They can't make you a paper ticket. You have to have this in order to scan your ticket to fly in Europe. And you think about that. Well, it won't be too much longer. The scariest thing speaking about technology, the scariest thing about traveling internationally now, to me, is that when you go to customs in Europe, you don't have to show your passport, because you just look into the thing and it scans your face. And I about died. I'll be honest with you, I almost had a heart attack when I was in Germany, and I was getting ready to get on that plane to go to Rwanda, and they scanned my face, and my entire family history showed up on that screen. Brandy's name and phone number, my kids' names, my social security number, everything popped up on that screen right in front of me. I mean, first of all,
good in a way because they can follow falsify.
Oh, yeah,
documents.
yeah.
You can't falsify your face.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there is a safety aspect to it, but it.
We won't shave your face.
That's right. Well, see, I thought about that while I was standing there. I was like, you know,
What if I shake?
what if I shaved?
It's
Yeah, it's like a retinal scan. Yeah.
Whatever.
But you think about that, right? To me, that scares me to death, right? Because, yeah, I mean that means my information's everywhere, right?
They had that same thing coming off the cruise ship.
Oh, yeah.
In the passport line.
Yeah.
They didn't look at your passport.
Yeah.
They did the
Scanned
face scan.
Yeah, the only time that they stamp my passport now is when I leave the airport. That's the only time to do that. Now, you think about all that, right? And again, that's a little bit scary. But you think again about how careful you need to be with your own information online. And you hear a lot about that. But what do we know about our information? It's everywhere, right? It's already everywhere, right? How many of y'all have gotten alerts or saying that your information was stolen from Visa or whomever?
How was it stolen?
So, yeah, you know. So on one hand, it's kind of a lost cause at this point, right? Your information is everywhere, and it's easily gainable by people. Now, that being the case, one of the most dangerous things that's happening now is they're being able to mimic voices, and you know they are calling, especially elderly people, with the voices of relatives and telling them to, you know, Grandma, I'm here. I need, you to send me $50 or whatever, right? Now, how do you protect your elderly loved ones from things like that?
We've done a password. We tell them if they don't know the password, then to hang up the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's the best way. That's about the only way, right? Because what's the other option?
Just don't give them any information.
Don't answer the phone, right? That's the other option, right? That's pretty much what Edith has started to do, is just not answer the phone.
Or ask them something that only they would know.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's the password idea, right?
With AI, I wouldn't trust that.
Yeah, so, as you think about all that stuff, right? On one hand, what can you do to prevent that kind of stuff? And we're kind of at the point now where you can't. I mean, that's just the horse is so far out of the barn at this point that.
If they had all your information, where did they get it from? Like, did you have it on your passport?
Well, I'm sure it was shared through that. I guarantee where they got it from is when I applied for my TSA pre-check. I'm sure that's
The
where.
credit bureau has all, like, if you ever
Yeah.
look on your credit report, it'll have, like, anybody that's had any connection to your address, and then it, like, branches off, so, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like Matt living at your house at one point, now him living somewhere else, like, and then it'll connect Lydia back to you, and,
I
like,
get calls all the time for like my mama's land and stuff, and I'm not like.
well,
she's
my
still
sister's
living
never lived in my
down
house,
here.
and I'll get mail in
Yeah.
the mailbox from her with her name
Yeah.
on it. She's
Mhm.
never been at my address,
Right.
ever.
Yeah.
No connection whatsoever. I figure it was the credit bureau, probably.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure.
Because, like, they know where your employment is, they know what your, like, different,
Mhm.
because you
Right.
put in, like, your occupation, like, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and again, as you think about part of that, right? One of the most dangerous things nowadays is how easy it is to be taken by false stories that you read online. I mean, that's one of the things about AI is AI is getting to the point now where it's fooling all of the AI stuff that they've written to track AI. Like I played around with some of those AI tools that professors are supposed to use, and like I've copy and pasted stuff that I know that was written in like 1650, and it'll show up in those AI things. It's 100% AI. Now, obviously, Ebenezer Erskine didn't use AI at any point in time, but that tells you again how good AI is getting at mimicking real things, right? So let's say you're on Facebook or you're on Google or wherever, and a story pops up that says that you need to go do this, or you're going to lose all of your information. All right, and I mean, it looks completely legit. All right, how do you tell whether that's real or not?
With anything else on Facebook.
Well, that's
Absolutely
yeah.
nothing.
Well, that's where I am now. I don't believe anything.
If there's something on there, I'll go to the internet, I'll go to Google or something and
Yeah.
search it and see if he says
Right.
it's up.
Yeah.
But
I mean, one of the most dangerous things they do nowadays is mimic emails.
Yeah, we go.
So you'll get an email, and everything about it will look legit, right?
Until you look at the email
Until you look at the
address.
email address, right? They haven't been able to do that yet. They will eventually,
Yeah,
but
because they can call you from numbers that are not like.
Mhm.
You ever have a caller ID come up and it
Right.
looks like it's somebody? Yeah.
well, see, that's one of the reasons why I've never changed my phone number. Yeah, I've never changed my phone number for that reason, because if it's a 601 number, I know it's not, legit. Ain't nobody in Mississippi trying to get hold of me. Well, maybe the health department in Mississippi, which that's a whole nother thing. But that's a whole nother part of this whole question. But again, you need to be able to recognize when things are true and when they're false, especially when they're presented in such a way that everything else about it looks legit. I mean, you see stories that pop up, especially around politics, right, that will make claims about certain things happening, that aren't actually happening. And, how can you tell the difference between whether or not,
go to the internet and look it up.
I mean,
You don't believe it on Facebook,
that's right. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of like you. I don't believe anything anymore. I've become totally cynical about everything. Yeah, because the other problem, of course, now is it's not even so much written stuff. It's visual. I mean, this Iran war has been a perfect example of this. The BBC, of all people, got taken by a fake video showing an American aircraft being shot down, and the pilot being arrested by the Iranians and stuff. And if you,
And then the attack on the Abraham Lincoln.
and
The Lincoln is.
I mean, that was another one, right? Supposedly video of the Abraham Lincoln being hit by rocket fire and stuff. And so, but again, the videos are getting so good. How do you discern whether that's real or not?
Well, sometimes, most of the time, you'll see AI
A watermark of some kind, right?
There is a watermark.
Yeah.
I think they have to put the watermark on it.
Yeah. One thing about AI is it's still not very good at fingers and toes.
Yeah.
That's another thing. That's one thing to keep out on, is that if somebody has 6 fingers, it's probably a good bet.
Jeremy has 6 toes.
Well, I know my brother-in-law has 6 toes, but so 98% of the time, if it's not my brother-in-law, you can tell, right? So part of that is you have to be more discerning, right? You have to be, you don't have to go full cynical like I am or like Kim is, but you do need to take your time, right? And you can ask Google, right? What else can you do?
Contact, I mean, if you know who it is.
Right, if you know who it is, right, you can ask, right? Yeah, this is going to sound silly, but you should probably ask one of your kids or grandkids, right? Because what world are they growing up in? Right, they're growing up in an AI world, right? And so what are they going to notice more directly or more clearly than maybe you will? Right? What's real and what's not, right? Because again, they live in that world. I say that like I'm 87 years old. But, there's a certain aspect of that, right, that you have to be careful about. Now, that's always been a problem, right? There's nothing really new about that in a sense. One of my favorite stories about that is that back in the early 80s, right, there was a rock band called AC/DC. Well, they're still around, but, What was that was all part of what they called the Satanic Panic, right? And what was AC/DC supposedly stood for? Yeah, Antichrist, dead Christ is what AC/DC supposedly stood for, right? And they supposedly were like sacrificing, children and things like that, right? Now, is any of that true? No. What does AC/DC stand for?
Isn't it?
Alternate current, direct current, right? That band was named because Malcolm Young was looking at the back of his amp and saw AC/DC and thought that would make a great name for a band. But again, there's always been a problem with fake news, right? With false information being spread all over the place, right? There's nothing new about that in that sense. The danger today is the overwhelming nature of it, right? And also just how prevalent it is, right? And again, part of that's being wise, being careful about it. Now, the other aspect of this, of course, as we kind of started with, was again how you behave and act online, right? Because again, what's the big danger about engaging on online things? What's that?
Once it's out there, it's out there.
Once it's out there, it's out there, right? I mean, anybody who works in HR can tell you, first thing they do when they get your application is
Check your social media.
check your social media, right? And how many people have you talked to who don't seem to understand or realize that, like, other people can see that? Yeah. And what usually happens when you try to have a conversation with somebody who's posting things that they shouldn't, that
It's
are
my personal page.
right? Yeah, it's my personal page. Yeah, I've heard that
Doesn't
too.
matter.
Right? But what's wrong with the Brain Connect there?
Well, like you're getting it now is all this, health, like the healthcare professionals who, were, like the one nurse in Florida who went after Caroline Levitt. I'm just saying, she would, like, they.
Like they post reaction videos.
Or no, like,
Yeah.
on Twitter where she's like, if you were in distress, I wouldn't,
I wouldn't take care of you
I
or
wouldn't
whatever.
take care of you, that kind of stuff, and it's like,
Mhm.
you as a
Yeah.
healthcare, even though you don't mention where you work, but you say you're a healthcare professional, you took a hit,
Yeah. Well, I
you
mean,
let
yeah.
it go.
And so people get all shocked, right, when they get fired.
Right, and
After
then they
you-
try to sue for-
I mean, you hear about it like with teachers and stuff. Your teachers get on Facebook, get underneath a story, and say something, crazy, and it's not just left-leaning people who do stuff like this; it's right-leaning people as well. You get under a Facebook story and you write some big long nasty thing, and then all of a sudden, somebody clicks on your profile and realizes you're a 5th grade teacher at Bethany Elementary School, right? And what's the next thing that happens?
You get caught, she gets caught in that.
Well, yeah, you,
Wait a minute, shit, come on now.
Miss Guerin gets 900 emails, right, and screenshots and stuff like that, and
It's just like when Charlie Kirk was killed
Mhm.
and all that.
oh yeah, people,
Professors.
posting reaction stuff, right? Because that's the other thing too about online, right? It goes back to the access and the speed. Right? How long does it take you to post a reaction on Facebook or wherever?
It's,
Yeah, like that, right?
That's no different than people that drive by a wreck and take pictures of it and then post it.
Oh,
Finding out that their child was,
Uh-huh.
we know several people that found out
mm-hmm.
that their child was like killed or something like
Right.
that
Mm-hmm.
from social media
Right.
instead of,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and the fact that people have
No shame. No, just don't even think about it, right? Because again, there's this perverted need to know,
Or to be the first
Or be
to
the
tell
or
us.
be the first to tell it, right?
It's just like those crazies that
Mm.
when something terrible's going on, they get their phone out and they run towards something dangerous and they start
Uh huh.
filming it, which is
crazy.
You're
Yeah.
filming it instead of trying to help.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to see that.
Well, again, I mean, it's one of those things that, right? I mean, we all intellectually know that that's wrong and like you shouldn't do that. But again, what's the temptation there? Why do people want to be first and jump into things like
So
that?
they get more likes and more followers.
Yeah, more likes, more follows, pride.
But I don't think
People
some
like
people
being
know it's
famous.
wrong.
Oh, no, I
People
agree.
don't even know it's wrong, it's just the way.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
A lot of people are disconnected from,
Yeah, it's just they have no
like,
conscience.
one-on-one
Right. Yeah. A lot of people lack.
people that
Yeah.
they live their life through.
Right. Well,
social media.
this might be too much internet lingo, but what's the saying that you're supposed to tell people who are online too much? Touch grass.
Oh, go touch grass, yeah. Annie told her friend that. Go touch grass.
Go touch grass. Right. And what's that? What's that communicating?
You're online too much.
You're online too much, right?
Go
You
outside
you
the world.
right. You need to go out in the real world and experience things, right? Because some of it's that, right? Some of it's just the disconnect between online reality and the real world. But part of the thing you have to teach yourself as much as young people is that the online is the real world, right? Because the other aspect of that, right, is we've trained our brains to think that video is not real. That video is like a TV show or like a movie or like things like that. And so if I'm filming it through my phone, there's a thing going on in your brain that's kind of telling you that's not actually happening. You are recording this, and you're sharing it online, and again, not thinking about the fact, like you said, somebody's burning to death in that vehicle right now, right? If I had taken out my phone and called 911, what may have happened? Could have been saved, but you got your 30 seconds of video, and I mean, to your point, this just happened yesterday. There was a bad four vehicle accident over on Sawmill Road, and oh goodness, it was
Allison Creek.
Yeah, Allison Creek, and it got posted on the Clover Lake Wiley page before the first responders could even get to the scene. And you saw, people from Clover Fire Department and stuff posting on there saying, "Take this off," all that stuff, right? Again, how would you feel if that's how you found out that your loved one was in an accident? Because again, not only do you post that, but of course, then what do people post underneath of it? Probably on their phone,
Yeah.
or some kind of negative comment about behavior, right?
Cassie County lockout was pretty good though.
All these
Yeah.
violent games, I think,
Sure.
desensitize
kids
to,
Mhm.
they don't have a concept of death. I mean, they
Mhm.
do so many of those games where they kill people, and they don't
Mhm.
really have
Mhm. Right.
When people.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly a desensitization
It's just desensitized,
to that,
like,
Mm-hmm.
It's just. They don't have
With the word desensitization, yeah.
it's not real to them.
Right. Yeah. And I mean that's some of that, right? But let's think a little bit more about older folk, right? Because I think today the greater danger is not so much with young people, but as older people getting caught in scams, getting. Well, I'm not worried about you. Miss Kim's fine. Yeah. Getting caught in scams, getting taken advantage of,
You're thinking like somebody like Miss Ruth.
Well,
My
yeah,
grandmother
that,
got caught in all that with
Yeah.
illegal money left
Mhm.
and right, and my mom had to come in and
yeah,
stop her.
and with that, my grandma, not nanny, but my grandma used to call my aunt all the time because of stuff she thought she read online about stuff that she saw. And she was like living in fear and anxiousness all the time because of what she was reading online.
We should have the sense to call them, find out.
That is true. But usually it was her calling my aunt to warn her about something.
Well, she also she also had every symptom
Right.
for every.
Yeah, buying my grandma an iPad was not the wisest decision. Everybody. I used to talk to my grandma about that too. She was born in 1919 and didn't have running water or electricity in her house growing up, and here she is with an iPad. It just that always blew my mind just to think about what she talk about technology changing. Like, she rode a horse in town when she was a kid, and here she is with an iPad and surfing the internet and being worried about. Of course, this was 2011, 2012. So she's like worried. She would get worried that ISIS was in Dayton, Ohio. Like that ISIS was going to bomb Dayton, Ohio. Like, she was living in constant fear of Muslim terrorism all the time.
Well, it is one of the biggest.
And
areas.
but again, I mean, it's just kind of an example. But I've been called more than once by folks who read something online and think it's gospel truth, and post things on the internet and things like that. And it's not always after a bad thing, right? There's a lot of people who make good money off of posting fake stories about Christian persecution. And again, I can often tell that it's fake because they're reusing the same pictures. Actual things that happened, and then they're writing a fake story and putting that picture on it, and it's getting shared in prayer chains and stuff like that. And it's really awkward to try to tell somebody that that this didn't happen. There's enough actual Christian persecution going on. We don't need to make it up. But again, the danger again is not getting any smaller. It's certainly getting larger.
That's kind of what happened with the toilet paper shortage.
Oh, yeah.
This one post for people to say we're going to run out of toilet paper, and we ran out of toilet paper.
Yeah. So there's panics that can be caused by that. A good example of kind of the fake story. Do you remember the lost kids in Africa? There was a huge outcry about these lost kids, supposed 1,000 kids that got kidnapped or something. Well, it all turned out to be fake, but it was getting shared on CBS and all kinds of places. Because what's the old saying about local news? If it bleeds, it leads. People figured out a long time ago that we will pay a lot more attention to things that are deadly than things that are happy and joyful. And why is that? Why do people seem to get more enjoyment? Sensationalism, certainly. Human nature. Yeah, I mean, what was the biggest activity in the first century AD in Rome? Gladiators, Colosseum, stuff like that. I've always been surprised that hadn't popped up. Again, like hardcore gladiator type stuff. It seems like something that people in 2026 would pay money to go see.
You missed it at the high school retreat. With the pool noodles.
That's true. But
Dark world.
I mean, we live in a dark world, certainly. What are some proactive things we can do, to prevent ourselves from falling into fake stories and sensationalist things and stuff like that?
Stay off the internet.
Stay off the internet. Yes.
I think just general communication when you're talking with people and actually having real conversations, you can
Right.
quickly debunk
Mm-hmm.
things or know what you need to really be worried about.
Mm-hmm. They, I mean, some of it, is trusted sources, right? If you are reading if you're reading a story from, I'm trying to think of something elaborately crazy,
ABC News.
well,
CNN.
yeah, those are obvious. But like, if you get something shared to you from like,
Clover Lake Wiley Moms groups.
yeah, I mean, yeah, those are all good examples. But I mean, if the website is some like 15 word, thing, what's the likelihood that that's an accurate representation of what is happening?
Oh, no.
Yeah. So let's say somebody emails you or messages you a story that says alldemocratslie.com. Like, is that likely to be an accurate representation of events?
Yes.
Yeah.
We would change both
Well,
of that.
that's right. Yeah. This is not going exactly how I envisioned.
Just
Um,
see what's happening in the world right now. We'll swallow
That's
it.
true. That is very true.
You got movie media, like
Yeah.
CBS.
Yeah. I mean, like I said,
Story out there, no,
Mhm.
it's not true.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, and of course, there's a sense in which, is there anything new about that? About mainstream news
It's also
lying about stuff. Yeah. One of the greatest examples about this is my boy Richard Nixon. Right. Everything. That's right. Everything about that was set up and shaped by the news media, to get done what happened. In fact, Bernstein was a CIA agent. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, right, involved in that.
And they're not supposed to operate on U.S. soil.
But again, there's nothing new about it, right? Back in 200 years ago, right, they had the thing called yellow journalism, right? And again, you go and look at the names of newspapers back in those days, right? And you had like the Arkansas Democrat, right? Or the, Peoria Republican, right? And what kind of news do you think you were getting from the Arkansas Democrat? Do you think it was straightforward, tell the truth journalism? No. In some sense, we're actually better off without there being a pretense that people are honest, right? Because then from the jump that what you're getting is not, 100% accurate. But even in that case, how do you even know the truth?
You have to kind of take, as they say, take everything with a grain of salt, and then you have to investigate it on your own, just to make sure it's the truth. Like,
What was Ronald Reagan's famous saying about that?
No more
Something
taxes.
been verified.
Yeah, trust and verify, right? That's George Bush, H.W. Bush.
What'd she say? No more taxes.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. George H.W. Bush is a good example of this kind of stuff. Because you remember in 1992 when he was running against Clinton, he went to a grocery store, and he was at the checkout line. That in 92 was 96 was Gore and Dole. 92 or not Gore and Dole,
Yeah.
Clinton and
Yeah,
Dole.
22.
But you remember he was at the cash register, and they were because it was first when like debit cards came out, and the first checkout things with debit cards came out, and the news media spun it to show that George H.W. Bush was out of touch and he was lost and all that stuff. What really happened was that the machine didn't work. And so the still photo that you have of George H.W. Bush is him standing there with the card looking lost. When really, if you watch the video, he was trying to get it to work, but the machine wasn't working, right? So again, we've had this kind of fake news stuff for a long time. But again, the issue that we have to deal with today is that, we need to maintain the same kind of trust but verify mindset with this stuff, right? We can't just read something and just assume that it's an accurate representation of things. But any other crazy things?
It's just so much. There's always been like fake news, but now it just seems like now it's just so much quicker.
Right. Well, it's so constant, right? Because we're 24-hour news channels, right? They got to fill it up with something, So there's always stuff being presented to you, right? And
But you're also not only do you have what you could call like legitimate news.
Right.
I'll say legitimate because sometimes CBS and ABC run good, good stories. But you have like TMZ, you have those paparazzi shows that are quick to jump on and
feed the frenzy, so to speak. Yeah.
And then they purposefully lie.
Oh yeah.
Like just like all the things with Mr. Trump. So they just put it out there and they run with it, and it's not a truth to it. So.
and that's why they spend millions in lawsuits.
But again, I mean that's the thing, right? I mean I think one of the solutions is to cut yourself off from 24-hour, right? Because if if you're constantly on it, right, does your mind ever get a break from things that don't actually have any effect on you? Right. One of the things about culture in 2026 is that we've, globalized the local, right? In the scheme of things, right, is the war in Ukraine have anything to do with Clovis, South Carolina? No. If we lived in 1850, would you even know that there was a war in Ukraine and Russia? But every day, what are you told should matter to you? Right. And if you're not actively supporting, then you're evidently pro-Russia, right? So not to get tied into peer pressure, what do you post on the internet? Well, pray for Ukraine, or you put a little Ukraine flag on your thing, right? Right, and then you drive down in York, and what do you see? People with Ukraine flags out in front of their house. They probably couldn't find Ukraine on a map. But what have they been told by the TV and by the phone and by the internet? That if you don't publicly declare your loyalty to X, Y, or Z, then you must be on the other side. Right? Yeah.
I mean, that's the same. That's the same with all protests and stuff now. Because you ask those people what their protests had, they don't know.
Well, that was something funny. My grandma in Lewisburg, West Virginia, my grandma was complaining about a No Kings protest that they had in Lewisburg, West Virginia, so I spent an hour and a half. I'm not exaggerating. I spent an hour and a half trying to explain to my grandma what a No Kings rally was, because it was so funny because she kept saying to me, "We don't have a king," and I was like, "Yes, you're correct." Well, why are they protesting a king? We don't have a king. Yeah, I mean, it was just like over and over again. But if you want to be seen as somebody who cares, right? Where are you supposed to be at 10 a.m. downtown in Lewisburg? Yeah, you better be at that No King rally, or you're going to be left out of the cool club or whatever, right? And it's so bizarre to think about the nature of how the world works, that you have to be engaged in things that have nothing to do with you or your X, Y, or Z. But again, that's part of this whole online thing, right? Is you have to be willing to ignore that kind of pressure, right? Because if you give into that pressure, what are you never going to get done? Anything else, right? Because you've got to glob on to what the new thing is. What the new protest is, or what the new thing is, right? I have a tendency to agree with Ms. Kim on this. I think we're better off just becoming Amish and destroying our computers and things.